Chosen one, the door doesn't open so much as it yields to you. The hinge gives a soft sigh, the room inhales, and for a heartbeat, the ordinary pulse of conversation loses its rhythm. Glass stems pause midair. Laughter shortens by a half note, like a song catching on a memory. It is not vanity to notice this. It is literacy. Reading the shift in air pressure when presence enters. You do not hurry and you do not pose. You arrive the way a coastline arrives to a wave. Steadfast, inevitable, quietly spectacular. You were not sculpted by flash and noise, but by hours no one witnessed. The still mornings where you chose discipline over indulgence. The evenings you learned to sit in your own company until the mind softened and the body remembered what it was built for. Steadiness, shelter, strength. These things etch themselves along the jaw and across the shoulders, and feminine eyes recognize them the way a traveler recognizes water in a desert. They do not just see your face, they receive a message. Safety can be beautiful, and beauty can be safe. You stand with the kind of alignment that calms people without asking permission. Heels grounded, spine lengthened, gaze level, temples relaxed. It is astonishing how much reassurance a posture can carry. Your silence is not empty. It is charged with the gravity of choices you've mastered. The room senses a man who could lift, could hold, could endure. Far more than symmetry draws them. What grips them is the geometry of character worn as bone. Watch how the first woman notices you, not with hunger, but with wonder. Her fingers drift to her necklace, a reflex of reverence. She tries to return to the story she was telling, but the syntax slips, and the eyes of her friends slide to you like iron filings to a magnet. You do nothing to collect this attention. It's collected for you by the quiet machinery of presence. Handsome is the surface word they'll use later. The truer language is this. There is a man here who makes chaos remember its manners. You move, and even the smallest gesture behaves like poetry. The curl of a knuckle around a glass, the courtesy of stepping aside to let someone pass, the way you listen with your entire frame instead of just your eyes. Feminine women witness details as evidence. A subtle nod when someone makes a point. The patient half smile that lets them finish, unhurried. Without knowing why, shoulders lower around you, jaws unclench, and the room's heartbeat steadies into a slower, more elegant tempo. If you spoke now, your words would land softly and sink deeply, but you don't need them yet. Your presence is the thesis, and the room is already reading it line by line. She studies the hinge of your jaw and thinks of reliability. She traces the arc of your cheek and imagines laughter that arrives like sunrise. She sees the calm in your eyes and, without negotiation, gives her nervous system a brief holiday. Remember this, what makes them hold their breath is not perfection. It's permission. You give them permission to rest. You cross the floor. You nod at the elder first, because you know what honor looks like. You greet the staff with the same warmth you'd give a queen, because hierarchy never taught you how to be human. Each small respect is a bright stitch pulled through the fabric of the room, and by the time you've taken your place, the tapestry hangs differently. Faces tilt toward you the way flowers track the sun, not to worship, but to orient. They will call you beautiful because language is a blunt instrument. What they are actually responding to is consonance, the rare event of a man's exterior agreeing with his interior. The bone lines sing the same song as the character. The eyes confirm the rumors the posture started. The mouth keeps the promises the gaze made. In that harmony, feminine hearts find themselves breathing in unison. Their breath halts not from shock, but from awe. For a moment, they are standing before a truth they always suspected existed. And you, chosen one, remain unhurried. You don't fish for reactions. You don't dim to make others comfortable or flare to prove that you can. You inhabit the right size for your soul, and that is what turns the ordinary evening mythic. There is nothing to perform. There is only the revelation, quiet and devastating, that the handsomest man in the room is also the most grounded, and that this combination is rarer than lightning in winter. Let them breathe again when they are ready. You never stole their breath. You simply reminded it of a better rhythm. There was a time the mirror negotiated with you in bad faith. It offered fragments, a shadow on a day you were tired, a shimmer when you'd slept well, a distortion when the light was cruel and the angle less kind. You learned to treat reflections like weather, real in the moment, unreliable as a map. But then life began to corroborate a deeper testimony. Strangers' eyes steadied on you with a recognition your self-talk could not dismiss. Compliments arrived not as flattery but as field reports. Your presence has effects. Your face carries news. One morning, you met your reflection, and instead of searching for defect, you audited for truth. The truth was not vanity, not measurement, not the insecure inventory of features. The truth was coherence. The discipline you kept when no one watched had settled into the muscles of your expression. The forgiveness you offered those who didn't deserve it had softened the corners of your mouth in a way no serum could replicate. The vows you kept with yourself had lined your eyes with a steadiness no filter can counterfeit. The mirror wasn't praising you. It was finally telling the same story as your life. You leaned closer and studied what the world already knew. The jawline was not merely a line, it was a ledger of decisions. The eyes were not merely clear, they were honest about where they had traveled. Through grief without bitterness, through triumph without arrogance, through loneliness without collapse. You noticed how your posture made the face handsomer without changing a single molecule. Shoulders drawn slightly back, chest open, chin neither low nor high, just right. Geometry improved not by angles alone, but by intent. It struck you that this is what the feminine gaze trusts. Beauty underwritten by integrity. From that day, the mirror became a collaborator. You no longer stood before it as a defendant on trial. You consulted it like a craftsman checking a beloved instrument. A hand through the hair not to impress but to prepare. A breath into the belly to remind the ribs you are safe inside yourself. A last glance to confirm that the man in the reflection matches the man who will greet the world. Pride, you realized, is not peacocking. It is stewardship. You are responsible for the gift you carry, and responsibility looks good on your face. The world kept agreeing in small, unmistakable ways. The barista's eyes lifted and stayed a half-second longer than custom. The executive paused mid-corridor. "Good morning," in a tone that admitted she would remember you later without knowing why. A child pointed and smiled, unburdened by sophistication, reading something bright in your presence. These were not trophies. They were instruments in an orchestra tuning to your pitch, and the mirror, quiet, silver, unassuming, rang with the same note when you passed. On evenings when doubt tapped at your shoulder, you practiced a different ritual. You asked the glass not, "Am I enough, but am I aligned? Am I carrying my strength without cruelty, my softness without apology, my ambition without hurry?" The face that answered was handsomer whenever the questions were yes, and even on no days the path forward was simple. Return to the practices that built you. Sleep, water, iron, and sweat. Prayer or stillness. Work done well and without complaint. The mirror cannot grant beauty, but it can confirm the bloom of discipline. Feminine women are connoisseurs of coherence. They may praise the jaw or the smile, but what moves them is the echo between your look and your life. They see hands that could harm but choose to heal. They see eyes that could dominate but choose to understand. They see a mouth that could seduce cheaply but speaks blessings instead. The physical becomes luminous, not because it is flawless, but because it is governed. Handsome becomes a sacrament, outward form revealing inward grace. So be proud, chosen one, not of a face that time will inevitably edit, but of the man who authored it. Pride here is gratitude shaped into posture. It is the calm yes you carry into the day, a yes that lets others breathe and believe in better. The mirror agrees with their gaze because all three, mirror, gaze, and man, are finally reading from the same page. You are not chasing affirmation anymore. You are confirming alignment. And when the evening comes and the glass gives you back your image, linger for one heartbeat more. Thank the boy who endured to build this man. Thank the man who refuses to stop refining. Then walk away without a backward glance. Not because you are indifferent, but because you are ready. Ready to meet the world with the quiet radiance of someone whose beauty is anchored, whose presence is merciful, and whose pride is simply the truth standing upright. They don't mean to make you into a story, chosen one, but stories are what women trade when they step out into the cool night after the room has finally let you go. The door shuts, the streetlight casts its clean gold along the sidewalk, and breath pearls into the air as if even the city needs to exhale what it just witnessed. She tries to talk about the music or the dessert, but the conversation bends back toward your orbit like a compass needle turning home. Who was he? Someone asks, not because she forgot your name, but because names are too small for presents. Too good looking, another mutters, cheeks warm with a frustrated smile, as though accusing beauty might lessen its effect. They laugh in the safe theater of friendship and then fall quiet, each admitting by silence that you have become a reference point for future comparisons. On the ride home, their phones vibrate with a cadence of soft lightning, and the group thread blooms. One sends a photograph of the room where you stood, pretending the camera captured an interior and not an influence. Another writes, "He listened like a vow." The one who barely spoke all evening types, "His face looks like authority without arrogance. Delete this later." What they are actually whispering about is not symmetry or fashion. It is the rare union of strength and calm. The unsettling miracle of a man whose beauty doesn't foreclose safety but deepens it. They have met handsome before. It is the everyday spectacle. You are something else, astonishing without being loud, magnetic without theft, admired without demanding to be. The whisper economy is older than the internet. It's how good women keep one another safe, how they catalog what is shelter and what is storm. Your name enters that quiet registry with unusual annotations. He thanked the server, and it didn't sound performative. He made space for the elder first. He never chased the gaze he could have owned. They register these details with the same seriousness as a sailor marks shoals, and what they keep circling is the unnerving coherence of you. Handsome men are common, integrated men are rare. The difference is audible in the pitch of their voices when they try to explain you, how they keep reaching for metaphors that sound like architecture and weather and sanctuary. One remembers the way you stood when the loudest person in the room tried to win the conversation by volume. You didn't shrink, and you didn't compete. You tuned the air around you until even the loud man unconsciously lowered his tone. Another recalls your half smile when someone stumbled telling a story, not a smirk that made her smaller, but a permission that let her gather the thread without shame. A third noticed your glance toward the door when a mother entered with a stroller, the micro-adjustment of your body to clear the way before she discovered the obstacle. These are the moments that make a myth inside a circle of friends. Not the cologne, not the jacket, not the jaw, though all of that frames the picture. But the frame was always meant to be a frame. The portrait is character. By the time she gets home, her apartment is dark except for a quiet lamp and the patient attention of the mirror. She is not looking at herself to compete with what she saw in you. She is checking the way your presence revised her posture. Shoulders down, breath deeper. An exhale she didn't realize she had been refusing. She thinks this is the kind of man you don't flirt with to be seen. You rise to be worthy of being seen by him. The words make her blush, not from shame, but from the sudden clarity of her own standard. Handsome, in your case, isn't a trophy to be paraded. It is an invitation to become honest and beautiful in return. In smaller towns, the whispers are literal. In larger cities, they are data traces. A bartender who remembers how you tipped, a doorman who nods with respect, a florist who says you asked for garden roses because they smell like a memory. The effect is the same. Your name becomes shorthand for a kind of masculine grace that clarifies the atmosphere. Not the dangerous charmer who collects hearts like stamps, not the cold statue who intimidates without warmth, but the rare midpoint where power and tenderness sign a peace treaty. Women notice, and they talk. The talk is not gossip, it is cartography. They are drawing you on their inner maps, marking you with the old symbol for safe harbor, and beside it another mark very few earn: do not test lightly. And still you go home and hang your jacket and drink water from the kitchen tap and rinse the glass without ceremony. You are not strategizing in effect, you are tending a life. You text a friend back about a hard day, you stack a book by the bed, you set an early alarm. Tomorrow you'll be handsome again because coherence is renewable, built by what you repeat. If you could hear the whispers, you would not be puffed up, you would be sobered. Their trust is a responsibility. Their awe is a mirror you must keep aligned by choosing, again and again, to be the man they suspected you were when you said nothing at all. So the murmurs go on, gentle as rain behind a closed window. One tells another, "He is dangerous in the way fire is dangerous if you respect it, and holy in the way fire is holy if you know how to warm your hands without burning the house down." They nod and they sleep, and somewhere in the soft registry where women keep what matters, your presence is filed under a new heading. Handsome, yes, but also shelter. Tomorrow, the world will test them and you in 100 small ways. But tonight, the whisper has set the tone. There is a man whose face and spirit rhyme, and everyone who met him is better oriented by the rhyme. It begins with nothing, just your fingers around a glass, the easy cradle of palm to curve, the gentle set down that does not announce itself by sound. The simplest motions disclose a philosophy. You do not slam to prove force, you land softly to prove control. The veins on your forearm are not a threat curling under the skin, but a quiet testimony. These hands have lifted things heavier than ego and carried burdens gentler than pride. She watches the way you adjust your cuff and experiences a ridiculous tremor in her voice, not because you've performed for her, but because something ancient in her reads capability and restraint in the same sentence and knows without a word that she is in the presence of safety with teeth. Your hands talk long before you do. Callus speaks of tools. Small scars narrate chapters nobody brags about. A shelf built, a door rehung, a child's bicycle mended, a pot pulled from a hot oven before it burned. The knuckles carry the outline of a man who can bear weight and prefers to bear it quietly. There is a way you pick up a bag that redistributes the load to spare your shoulder later. A way you hold a door so it never scuffs the heel of the one behind you. A way you pass a cup so the handle is already aligned to her grip. None of it is dramatic. All of it is ceremonial. She does not feel managed, she feels regarded. When something drops, a pen, a scarf, a story, you are first to the floor. You kneel as if the ground were no indignity, and return what was lost without flourish, holding it thin side forward, ready to be received. She notices that you never linger your touch unless it's invited, that you measure contact with the same accuracy a carpenter uses for a final cut. A brush of your fingers along the rim of a plate to steady it on its way across the table. A distance kept at the exact width that says, "I see you, and I will not trespass." Her nervousness is not fear. It is a live wire of attention waking up in her palms, her breath changing tempo because your hands have narrated a promise. I could take, but I would rather care. You sign something, and even your handwriting feels tactile. Decisive strokes, clean exits, letters that stand without leaning on each other for support. You tie a loose knot in the twine around a parcel and check with a gentle tug, not from doubt but from respect for the object's journey. When you point, you don't jab. You trace a path, as if your finger has made friends with gravity. She has dated men whose hands asked everything of a room and left it exhausted. Yours restore the room to itself. The table is still level when you stand. The chair is pushed back with the soft authority of a man who has never needed to leave a mark to prove he was there. There is a way you touch the world that turns touch into liturgy. You set a book down as if the words inside were alive. You lift a sleeping dog's ear and place it back where you found it, smiling at a creature that trusts you by reflex. You roll your sleeves not to display yourself, though the sight of your forearms shocks her into the kind of silence that tastes like sugar, but because work wants a cleaner line, and you obey that want without spectacle. Even the moment you wash your hands at the sink tells a story. Water on, sleeves already clear, wrists turned, nails checked, towel hung properly, no drip left for someone else to step in. She watches and swallows and thinks, this is how a kingdom stays whole, one small mercy at a time. If you ever touch her, it will be because her eyes gave you a green light bigger than the traffic that surrounds 2 human lives. Until then, your hands speak consent in advance by their distance. She feels your proximity the way a shoreline feels the moon, a pull that is never coercion. And yet the nervousness persists, the delicious ache that comes from seeing potential married to patience. A hand that could pin becomes a hand that steadies. A hand that could claim becomes a hand that offers. She discovers that the surest aphrodisiac is not hunger, it is governance. Power bridled is the oldest poetry a woman's body has ever learned to read. Later, in some unremarkable moment, a grocery line, a crosswalk, a windy corner, you reach to shield a flame in a stranger's lighter, cupping the breeze out with a reflex born of 1,000 small rescues. The flame holds. The stranger nods. The world moves on. She sees it, and the sight brands itself into her private archive. Not the handsome man who interrupts to be seen, but the beautifully disciplined one who intercedes so that others may proceed. Your hands in that instant are a benediction. She will describe this to her friends and be embarrassed by how her voice lowers when she says his hands. They will understand without asking for details. At home, those same hands do the unglamorous work that keeps a life aligned. They fold laundry with fidelity to corners. They season a pan without waste. They write a thank you note. They fix the hinge that squeaked all week without announcing the repair. You keep your nails in the kind of order that signals respect for whoever's skin might someday meet yours. And you keep your grip strong because you plan to hold what matters without dropping it. No one applauds these motions, and that is why they amplify you. The stage you perform on is called daily, and excellence there makes the extraordinary safer when it arrives. She tells herself she is being ridiculous. How can hands rearrange a heartbeat? But bodies have older wisdom than arguments. They know where threat lives and where shelter breathes. Your hands write shelter into the room, and her nervousness is the body's way of noticing that it has found someone who could carry the heavy end of the table without complaint. If she were to trust you, the trust would not be blind. It would be built from 100 liturgies of care, each too minor to boast about, and altogether undeniable. And so the next time you reach for something, a door, a chair, a pen, a promise, she will watch, and the watching will steady her. Because she has learned, in the fluent language of gesture, that beauty is not just the face that turns heads. It is the hand that lifts, spares, aligns, and blesses. Your hands are enough to make her nervous because they tell the truth about you, and the truth lands like a warm, precise weight. This is a man whose touch would never be careless, whose strength would never be cheap, and whose nearness would make even the most fragile things feel safe enough to blossom. Airports are good laboratories for truth because nobody knows you and everybody is watching for something that steadies them. You move through security with unhurried competence, shoes off, belt coiled, tray aligned, the small courtesy of letting the family with the stroller go ahead without ceremony. The TSA agent's shoulders drop an inch when you meet his eyes and say good morning as if you mean it. The woman behind you, hair loose, tension high, catches the exchange and her breath evens out. Nothing dramatic happens, yet the line flows better after you pass through, as if order borrowed your spine for a moment. You don't notice, because you were not trying to be noticed. You were simply carrying yourself like a man who knows that his presence is part of the furniture of public life and chooses to make that furniture comfortable. In a bookstore, you become a quiet landmark. You return a misshelved title to its home. You kneel to help a child find the next book in a series. You step sideways so a stranger can photograph a display without your shadow across it. The barista glances up once, twice, and then again, not to flirt, but because the room's tempo went from jangling to legible when you arrived. Even the sound of the door opening and closing loses its harshness. People follow your pace without thinking about it. A man like you doesn't need a uniform to set a standard. Strangers read your posture like a sign that says, "Here, we are kind." On the street, the city throws its usual tests: horns, wet sidewalks, a bicyclist threading a too narrow gap. And you keep the temperature low. You slow a step at the curb so the elder beside you can match your stride. You pivot just enough to take the windward side when rain spits sideways. You put a hand out to steady a wobbling box without touching the person carrying it. A dog that bristles at everything does not bristle at you. And its owner laughs, relieved, as if permission were granted to relax for 70 seconds. You nod at the construction crew when their signal stops traffic, and they nod back with that compact masculine respect that says, "We see what you are, carry on." Handsome is visible, steadiness is felt. Strangers feel steadiness first, and only later realize that the face that carried it was beautiful. Elevators and lobbies compress character into small spaces where excuses die. You step in and turn to face the door, leaving half a step of room in front of the control panel because someone might need it. You ask, "Which floor?" and press the button without theatrics, Then you wait without crowding. Your hands rest peacefully at your sides, not in pockets like a man hiding, not on your phone like a man fleeing, just still. The woman in the corner who entered tense and tight realizes she is not being scanned, measured, or cornered, and her body writes you a thank you note she will never send. Shoulders down, jaw unclenched, gaze forward. She will not remember your shirt or your shoes, but if asked, she will say, "There was a man who made the elevator feel bigger." Even strangers feel it on days when you have nothing to give. Fatigue has a way of stripping pretense, and on such days your choices are truer for being heavier. You are courteous when you could be curt, quiet when the world begs for complaint, faithful in the small vows of public life. Hold the door, say the name on the name tag, clear your tray, park between the lines. A teenager at the next table notices and straightens instinctively, surprised to find himself imitating a man he doesn't know. An overworked cashier becomes less brittle for the next customer because you put change into her hand like you were placing a fragile thing back where it belongs. You will not see the chain of effects, but the city does. The city breathes easier around you. Even strangers feel it, is not myth. It is what happens when a face tells the truth about the soul inside it. The symmetry they notice first is really the outline of a deeper symmetry. Values lining up with gestures, gestures lining up with outcomes, outcomes lining up with the kind of world people hope to live in. Feminine women register all this in a heartbeat. Their eyes may linger on the lines of your cheek and the calm of your mouth, but their nervous systems are reading something else entirely. My safety increases within this radius. They are rarely wrong. You do not audition for that trust. You earn it by how you treat people who owe you nothing. At night, when the public lights go dim and windows become square mirrors in the dark, you sometimes catch your reflection walking beside you. You could choose to marvel or to doubt. Instead, you choose to remember that beauty is not a performance, but a stewardship. Strangers felt steadier today because you were steady. Strangers felt kinder today because you were kind. They will never write your name, but the city will carry your handwriting in the margins of its day. A little neater, a little quieter, a little more human, because you passed through it like a well-tuned instrument that made every other note sit where it belongs. Hope is a delicate construction, built slowly from disappointments survived and prayers whispered into pillows where no one can hear. Feminine women learn to be careful with it. They learn that appearance cannot substitute for sanctuary, and that charm can counterfeit character for exactly as long as it takes to draw someone into a small, expensive disaster. Still, they hope quietly, stubbornly, that somewhere a man exists whose surface and depth rhyme. When you appear, they do not fall apart. They exhale. Recognition is different from shock. They are not dazzled by you. They are relieved by you. The kind of relief that arrives when the thing longed for turns out to be real. You are what they were hoping for, because your beauty is not a mask, but a map. It points to something, and that something is navigable. Discipline at dawn, humor that does not humiliate, ambition that does not trample, tenderness that does not beg. The handsome that arrests their eye is anchored to routines no one applauds. The way you treat your body like a tool you're entrusted with, the way you treat your mind like a garden you weed, the way you treat your word like a contract you intend to keep. When their gaze moves from your jawline to your schedule, from your smile to your habits, they find the same man. That continuity is the prize. The face is an announcement. The life is the follow-through. Do not mistake their admiration for worship. Good women do not worship men. They worship God and respect what He builds when a man refuses to live sloppily. They are not waiting for a savior in human skin. They are choosing a witness. They want the evidence of a masculine life well governed, because such governance makes intimacy safe, makes home peaceful, makes children possible, makes community sane. You are handsome to them precisely because your handsomeness carries a promise. I will make the beautiful things I touch more beautiful, and I will not touch what I am unwilling to protect. You are what they were hoping for in the small trials where romance is absent and character is alone with itself. You notice the error on the bill and correct it in the restaurant's favor. You take responsibility without speechifying when a plan fails under your leadership. You apologize without self-excusing when you are wrong, and you do not turn apology into theater. You set boundaries cleanly, you enforce them calmly, and you accept the loneliness that sometimes attends such clarity. Handsome men can be purchased with praise. You cannot. They see that, and their hope grows flesh. There is another reason you fit their hope. You are not threatened by the fullness of the feminine. Women have learned to shrink around male fragility, to sand their edges so the insecure boy inside a grown man won't cut himself on their brilliance. You do not ask for shrinkage. A beautiful woman can be entirely herself next to you. Intelligent without apology, soft without fear, alive without needing to edit her joy. And your frame makes her expansion safer, not smaller. Even your pride is generous.